Hey folks, in this video we will explain the superior Iron Man, Tony Stark gets evil. Tony Stark is a lot of things, but what if he were a villain? How would that play out? That's exactly what happened with the superior Iron Man. All this began during the Axis storyline, when Redskull became Onslaught and cast a spell on heroes and villains alike. Once the spell was reversed by the Scarlet Witch, the roles became reversed. Heroes behaved like villains and vice versa. With this morality-shifting event, Tony Stark became the superior Iron Man. In this video, we'll go into more detail on how it all happened. Stick around. Superior Iron Man started out by crashing the halftime entertainment at a baseball game in San Francisco. It was here that he announced the release of his new app, Extremis. This app was supposed to be a techno-virus capable of transforming anyone who downloaded it on their smartphone, giving them a chance to become their better selves. You'd agree it was potentially addictive just by hearing that description. It would improve the beauty, muscle tone, and health of the world, starting with the residents of San Francisco, and its novelty was such that you didn't need a cosmetic surgery or procedure because the app was free, natural, painless, and accessible to everyone. But was it really about all those things? Tony Stark had since created the perfect armored suit for his superior Iron Man alter ego. It was called the Endo-Sim armor, whatever that means. It was supposed to come together on his person like a symbiote. All he had to do was say a few commands and the suit would wrap around his body, completely covering him. Then this fluid metal symbiote would harden and voila, you had the superior Iron Man. This superior suit also came with a transparent visor so you could see Tony's face, but that in itself wasn't a weakness because the visor was made from graphene, the strongest metal known to man. Even the direct shot of gunfire could not penetrate this visor, all the more to showcase Tony's ego. But back to the Extremis app, which was programmed to run for a trial period of 1 week only, after which subscribers had to pay a certain amount of money to continue using the app. Once the trial period had expired for the residents of San Francisco, there was utter panic. Everyone went back to looking and being their former selves. In essence, they had already gotten addicted to how the app made them feel. People started to go to extremes to pay for their Extremis app subscriptions, no pun intended, so Daredevil had to step in to stem the crime wave, or at least confront Tony Stark about it. But Tony would flip it on him by giving Matt Murdock what he always wanted. Essentially, Daredevil got his eyesight back for free, but with the condition that it had to be renewed like every other Extremis app user. So by that act, Tony bought the Daredevil's obedience just like all the other citizens of San Francisco. But he was just getting started, and if people were concerned about the resultant increase in the crime rate, then Tony already had an answer. He launched his new security drones called Iron Sight. It was a network of drone cameras spread throughout the city. And in addition, the drones had instant face recognition capabilities thanks to all the private data Tony had managed to collect from users' cell phones. Tony now had eyes over the city as if he was a god, or the embodiment of the Doomsday Antichrist for those of you who are Christians. The result is that the crime wave was stemmed and even bad people who may have been on the run or hiding out in San Francisco were immediately nabbed. Also, no one could enter the city without being identified. Ultimately, was this a good thing? Daredevil didn't think so, because he knew that underneath the seemingly secure society created by Tony lay a sinister and evil plan. So Daredevil kept following up on the trend and hoped it might lead to something negative for everyone's benefit. The truth is, Daredevil was right, because somewhere in the middle of all that, there was a virus to be inserted into the people of San Francisco. San Francisco had banned the sale of bottled water a while back, so Tony was able to infuse the city's water supply with said virus. But if you really think about it, Tony was acting almost like a benevolent dictator. He would rule with an iron fist, pardon the pun, but in the same breath he would appear to care for his subjects' welfare. During the times when the spell from earlier was cast or reversed even, Tony almost went ahead with the execution of the now villainous X-Men, and if it were not for a more pressing matter, those guys would have been dead. At the time, he also challenged the new Mighty Avengers. Apparently, the spell and subsequent inversion gave expression in this half-evil version of him as Superior Iron Man. Blue Marvel was the leader of the Mighty Avengers, and Tony knew he would pose a problem to the inverted Avengers, so he created a diversion that sent Blue Marvel and the Mighty Avengers to Greece. He hoped this would occupy them long enough, but they were done in no time and returned. Tony dared to blame all the happenings on a villain named Machine Smith to take the pressure away from him. He was really scared of what Blue Marvel and the Mighty Avengers were capable of. Worse still is what Tony Stark was capable of, if he ever became a villain. We can readily see evidence of this. Even Magneto feared such a scenario and tried to end Iron Man if he could help it. We already know that the effects of the inversion spell were reversed at some point, but strangely enough, this didn't affect Tony. So when Daredevil was about to expose Tony's plans, he was thrown out the high-rise window of the Stark headquarters. But Tony thought twice about letting Daredevil die on his premises, so Tony tried to save him by jumping to his rescue. Before Daredevil ever hit the pavement, the Superior Iron Man symbiote suit was made to wrap around Daredevil, thus saving his life. Afterwards, Tony took him to the lab and wiped his memory, then eventually took him to a hospital under Tony's sponsorship where he could be monitored closely without spilling any secrets. Tony had plans for world domination. First, he sold certain powerful weapons to the top 3 world governments that he claimed had the capacity to end all wars. Next, he bought the largest media house in the world so as to skew the news narrative in his favor. He was easily and quickly becoming like Thanos because he also planned to reduce the world's population somehow. But Pepe figured out what he was planning and blocked his moves by buying off a 54% stake in Stark Industries. That slowed him down, but he was not done yet. In the past, Iron Man had anticipated a time when his armored suits might get hacked, so he prepared himself for such an eventuality by making his suits psionic-proof. He also uploaded his consciousness to the cloud as a backup for when he was incapacitated. This way, he could control his suits remotely even while in a coma, for instance. He also rigged his suits to fight against him in the worst-case scenario. He knew a time would come where it was possible for him to go rogue or for the suit on him to malfunction. So in that scenario, another suit would challenge him and possibly neutralize the threat he posed. And this was the ultimate test of the Superior Iron Man suit. So the battle was on. Superior Iron Man would attempt to use all the Extremis App subscribers as human shields. He was able to control them via shortwave programming, thus enslaving them as disposable shields. But the more heroic Tony, which was operating from the digital cloud, had a trick of his own. Before Tony became villainous, he had an entire army of Iron Man suits to be deployed during emergencies like this. Tony was vain, after all, and collecting Iron Man suits was a major hobby, much like collecting classic cars. So it was this army of Iron Man suits that the digitized Tony resorted to and activated. They all came through to bring down Superior Iron Man. In order to maintain his fighting advantage, Superior Iron Man bulked up with a lot more of the metallic symbiote and started to look like a hulkish version of itself. Irrespective of the numbers on the other side, Superior Iron Man would easily keep the advantage. Even when the army of Iron Man suits dogpiled him, he would destroy as many of them in one fell swoop. Remember the Model 36 Hulkbuster suit used against the Hulk? That one too tried its luck, but Superior Iron Man dismembered it like child's play. It wasn't until Pepe used a sonic boom blaster that the metal symbiote temporarily came off Tony's skin. But Tony was only fooling her. He let her take him in so he could infiltrate the server where his other consciousness was stored. When he got in, he inserted a virus that destroyed his old heroic digital self. Then, in a final gesture of kindness towards himself, he would try to keep a quarantine copy of his consciousness as if for future reference. But Pepe would ultimately seal his fate by using the company she had seized from him to expose his sinister virus plans. Afterwards, his reputation would be ruined and he would become a shadow of himself. Stark Enterprises would be no more and his Iron Man suits would become useless. Iron Man would become completely and utterly alone in addition to being hated by everyone. At some later point, he would go off-world and end up facing Thanos for the sake of needing a little action in his life. Yes, Iron Man was that desperate and alone. He probably also had a death wish. Superior Iron Man would battle and kill Corvus Glaive, but end up being taken down by Terrax the Tamer. Superior Iron Man would then be imprisoned for several months. He would subsequently be rescued by some of his Avenger allies and go on to use one of his inventions called the Soul Hammer to thwart an alien invasion. Superior Iron Man would eventually meet his end when he was pitted against Captain America. The Cap has since acquired a War Machine suit, and the grudge between them has come to a head. No doubt, the ensuing battle was an epic one, but both combatants ended up dying when a SHIELD cruiser crashed on their exact location. So that's it, folks, and as Stan Lee would say, Excelsior! Please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell to get up to speed on related Marvel comic book titles. Thank you for watching, and bye.